And we're back. Our next topic we're going to be talking about is the ongoing controversy over a Supreme Court decision, Indiana Supreme Court's decision that we talked about last week in last week's show when it had just broken. Well, we've gotten a little bit more perspective, and there's a lot more outrage that has grown out of this decision.
A lot more feedback.
And just to briefly recap what the state Supreme Court decision was, it was involving a domestic dispute. I think down in Evansville, where some cops entered and they were, there was a case, accusing the cops of illegally entering a home.
Well, what happened was they approached a man in his driveway, and then illegally entered the home.
Right. But the Supreme Court decision, rather than kind of concentrating on this case and saying, well, maybe the cops had reason, it was a 911 call, the wife wanted them there, that they had the right to enter. They kind of expanded that and said that that basically citizens do not have any right to resist unlawful entry by police into their homes.
Key word here being unlawful, or as I believe the Supreme Court actually phrased it, illegal. That citizens in Indiana no longer have the right to resist illegal entrance into their homes by police authorities. Again, I wrote on this, and it's just another move towards a police state, towards a state where
pretty strong move, actually.
It is a very strong move, and it comes on the heels of the decision earlier in the week to allow the so-called no-knock warrants, or a no-knock entry to a house. In other words, you can go in without announcing you're a police officer, without a warrant. Previous to this, you had to contact a judge, get a warrant, and show probable cause, and then they would say, "Yeah, you can go in no knock because there's the possibility of danger to you." And now it's just up to the people on the scene, and I don't know what the rest of the state is like. From a lot of what I've seen in Lake County, I just don't trust a lot of our police officials, our police officers, to make that kind of decision at the scene.
Well, we're seeing now some reaction. There's a protest planned. Legislators, including Ed Charbonneau, have talked about legislation that would basically overturn this decision, The Supreme Court actually the state Supreme Court has an opportunity to revisit the case.
Right. And I have mixed feelings about that, because asking the Supreme Court to revisit the ruling is like saying, "What are you, nuts?" I think for a more definitive answer, it really ought to come from the U.S. Supreme Court, which
the Seventh Circuit Court of it. Well, it would go to the Seventh, probably. Go to the
well,
Seventh
actually,
Circuit.
because it comes from the Supreme Court, as I understand it, it would go directly to the U.S. Supreme Court.
If they accepted it by certiorari, but they don't have to do that.
But that would be the smart move.
I mean, and what are you, nuts? Yeah, they're nuts. That's what it boils down to. Some of the justices just have, in this era of homestead security, have just lost their marbles. So
well, and specifically, one of the justices that we're talking about is the one who wrote the decision,
Justice Davis.
Justice Davis, Stephen David, who was appointed by Governor Mitch Daniels, which I think sets up a really interesting political dynamic. This ruling is getting a lot of play across the conservative media. Rush Limbaugh talked about it yesterday on his show, very critically.
Right.
It was spotlighted on Drudge. We've gotten a ton of page hits on our website because we've been leading the reporting of this story. Dan Carden has been doing the most reporting of any media figure in this story. So it's getting a lot of criticism, I think, from conservatives, and yet this is a Mitch Daniels appointee. Is this something that, if Mitch Daniels runs for president, that could really hurt him?
I don't think so, because there are so many. I mean, look at the presidents who have appointed Supreme Court justices to the United States Supreme Court, and they turned out not to be quite what the president envisioned when they were not. So I don't think, I think once you give a person that type of job for life, if you will, then they become a lot more independent, which they should. They should not be beholden to the governor or to the president. They should be independent. But a lot of them have just turned around and said, thanks for the appointment. Oh yeah, by the way, I'm not going to follow your ideological plan. So I don't know that you can lay it at Daniel's doorstep.
I think there are plenty of other things that Daniels has done that will prove worthy of criticism from both sides.
Yeah.
Criticism and praise.
Well, it'll be interesting to see how this plays out, if the Supreme Court does revisit the case, or if it goes, the lawyer for the couple has said they'll appeal, and they'll look to take it to the U.S. Supreme Court. So
I can't imagine, and I've talked to a number of lawyer friends of mine, acquaintances, and most people can't imagine this withstanding a Fourth Amendment challenge against the right against illegal search and seizure. It just seems like a slam dunk that this will be overturned.
And it's a great opportunity for the U.S. Supreme Court, I think.
It is, and I think the U.S. Supreme Court, if it makes it to that level, will take it up, and will overturn it.
Right.
I have no doubt that the U.S. Supreme Court would overturn this decision if it came to that.
it'll be fascinating to watch it and see what happens.
Right.